India's neighbourhood is in turmoil. 6 months back, terrorists toppled a government. Now 2 more governments are fighting for survival. Sri Lanka has declared an emergency. Mass protests have gripped the country. Thousands broke curfew to protest against the ruling Rajapaksas. The entire cabinet resigned today, but the Rajapaksas are staying on. They're offering cabinet positions to the opposition, a unity government to tide over the economic crisis. In Pakistan too, an economic crisis followed by a political crisis that has now become a constitutional crisis. Another leader trying to keep his grip on power, Imran Khan. Over the weekend, he resigned as Prime Minister. The lower house of Pakistan's parliament was dissolved. The resignation killed the no-confidence vote. Imran Khan now wants a snap election. All of this is happening in India's neighbourhood, and New Delhi cannot afford to ignore these stories. They could very well define the course of India's foreign policy and impact the future of South Asia. On Gravitas tonight, we'll bring you ground reports and the latest from these two countries in crisis. Sri Lanka has declared a state of emergency. Things are going from bad to worse. The entire cabinet has resigned today. All 26 ministers, all of them have quit. Let me show you how the people of Sri Lanka responded. Now, these images are from today. Protesters gathered near Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's house. They were greeted with water cannons. The Prime Minister has not resigned. Neither has his brother, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. They're both clinging on to power, a last roll of the dice. The Rajapaksas have reached out to the opposition. They've called for what they call a unity government. What does it mean? Is this even a serious offer? Do they stand a chance at surviving in office? And what next for Sri Lanka? On Gravitas tonight, we'll discuss all of this and more. First, the updates. It's been an action-packed weekend. Last week, we saw massive protests against the Rajapaksas in Sri Lanka. An angry crowd tried to storm the president's house. There was a crackdown. The government declared an emergency. Several cities were put under curfew. Social media was banned. All of it backfired, fueled the anger on the streets. People defied the curfew. The protests grew. At some places, they turned violent. Those pictures were from yesterday. They show how public anger against the Rajapaksas is growing. So today they attempted a face saver. The entire Sri Lankan cabinet resigned, all 26 ministers. And this list includes key family members like Basil Rajapaksa, the finance minister of Sri Lanka, and a brother of Gotabaya and Mahinda Rajapaksa, the president and the prime minister. Then we have Namal Rajapaksa, Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs. He's the son of Mahinda Rajapaksa, also the presumed heir of this political dynasty. He's facing public anger too. Protesters tore down a poster of Namal Rajapaksa. Earlier today, reports said Namal Rajapaksa's wife has left Sri Lanka along with her parents. Now, we've not been able to independently verify any of this, but there is no doubt that the situation is precarious. The people of Sri Lanka are angry with the Rajapaksas, and the brothers are unable to get a grip on the situation. Our correspondent in Colombo, Dasuni Athauda, sent us a ground report just a short while back.
Seeing right now is history in the making here in Sri Lanka, as hundreds of thousands, if not millions of citizens have now taken to the streets in various parts of Sri Lanka to voice their dissent and disapproval against the current government, which is led by President Bucha Rajapaksa, for leading this entire country into the worst economic crisis in the history of this country. Now, as the protests continue to gather momentum in various continues to lose a stronghold in Parliament, with many ministers, state ministers now tendering in their resignation due to the strong opposition given by the people here in Sri Lanka.
The cabinet resignations are being called a farce because the top leadership has not resigned. Gotabaya and Mahinda still remain in office. They've made an offer to the opposition. They say they want to form a unity government. But how genuine is this offer? And I'll tell you why this question is being asked. The cabinet resignations come into effect only when the president accepts them. That is a procedure. They must go to the president and he must accept them. But that's not happened yet. The ministers have not submitted their resignations to the president. They went to Mahinda Rajapaksa instead, the prime minister. It was the prime minister who got the resignation letters, not the president, which raises the question, is this just a stunt? Were the Rajapaksas serious about changing the entire cabinet? Or was it a ploy just to get the protesters to cool down? Increasingly, this mass resignation is looking like a stunt. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has already named a new finance minister. His name is Ali Sabri. Earlier, he was the justice minister. Now he's been shifted to the finance ministry. And this is just one example. Previous ministers of foreign affairs, education and highways have been reinstated, or retained rather. So this is this little more than a cosmetic exercise? That's what the people are asking. They're venting their anger both on social media and on the streets. The opposition has rejected the idea of a unity government. And I have a statement with me. This is from Sajid Premadasa, the leader of the opposition. This is what he says. We want resignations and then we want a political model that works. A new Sri Lanka will begin with stronger institutions and not just a change in leadership. An interim government is nothing but internal party politics.
Sri Lanka is not a dictatorship. This is a democracy, and we will fight for the rights of the people, and we will fight to protect democracy in our motherland.
It's not just the lawmakers, even the cricketers of Sri Lanka have joined the protests. They have issued statements slamming the Rajapaksas. And I must say here, the Rajapaksas are not politically weak. Let me underline that point. They command a two-thirds majority in parliament. They control all the levers of power in Sri Lanka. Their crisis is very different. What they now must do is justify their grip on power. They face a public uprising. Under their watch, Sri Lanka has suffered 13-hour-long power cuts every day, shortage of petrol and diesel, shortage of life-saving medicines and food. The crisis has brewed for weeks before exploding. The Rajapaksas have lost popular support. The cabinet reshuffle can at best delay the consequences. It may not be able to avert the inevitable. And in Pakistan, the situation is no better. The political drama has turned into a constitutional crisis. The Prime Minister has ducked the no-confidence vote. The President has dissolved the National Assembly. The opposition has taken the matter to court. The people are bracing for an early election. And the Pakistan Army has done the unthinkable. It has condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine and is pushing for closer ties with the West. In the next 5 minutes, we'll get you updated with all these developments and more in Pakistan, starting with the no-confidence vote. It was supposed to be held on Sunday. It has now been cancelled. Imran Khan did not turn up, neither did his party members, his lawmakers. They sensed the impending defeat and they bunked the vote. In fact, they got it cancelled. Using the services of this man, Deputy Speaker Qasim Khan Suri, a member of Imran Khan's party, he annulled the vote. He called it a plot by Western forces. Listen to what he said.
वज़ीर-ए-आज़म पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ अपोजिशन ने अदम-ए-एतमाद की तहरीक 8 मार्च 2022 को पेश की थी। अदम-ए-एतमाद की तहरीक का आइन, कानून और रूल्स के मुताबिक होना जरूरी है। किसी गैर मुल्की ताकत को यह हक नहीं कि वो साजिश के तहत पाकिस्तान के अवाम की मुंतखब हुकूमत को गिराए। वजीर कानून ने जो नुकात उठाए हैं वो दुरुस्त है, वैलिड है, लिहाजा मैं रूलिंग देता हूं कि अदम-ए-एतमाद की करारदाद आइन और कौमी मुख्तारी व आज़ादी से मुनाफी है और रूल्स और ज़ाब्ते के खिलाफ है। ये करारदाद में मुस्तरद डिसअलाउ करने की रूलिंग देता हूं। ईवान की कार्रवाई रोक की जाती है।
The PTI is calling this a googly. The opposition says it was a gutless act. They say Imran Khan chickened out and that this shows his lack of courage. The next thing you know, he appeared on television calling for the dissolution of Pakistan's National Assembly and appealing for early elections.
अभी से प्रेसिडेंट साहब को वो भेज दिया है, एडवाइस भेज दी है कि असेंबलियां डिसॉल्व करें। एक डेमोक्रेटिक सोसाइटी में हम डेमोक्रेट्स अवाम के पास जाएं, अवाम से इलेक्शंस हो, अवाम फैसला करे कि वो किसको चाहती है।
He says he wants to let the people decide. By people, it seems he means his loyalists. They're the one taking all the decisions right now, like Arif Alvi, the president of Pakistan. Remember, he was a senior member of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is Imran Khan's party. Now, he was quick to respond to Imran Khan's call. He wasted no time in dissolving the National Assembly. The opposition did not take it lying down. They went to Pakistan's Supreme Court. They called the dissolution an abuse of power, a violation of Pakistan's constitution. The court, meanwhile, had taken suo motu cognizance of the matter. It formed a 5-judge bench. A hearing was held today. It was adjourned within minutes. The court said it needed more time to assess the legality of Imran Khan's move. So what happens now? If the court rules in Imran Khan's favor, there will be elections in 3 months. The president, we know, is already on board. He's approved the appointment of a caretaker prime minister. So next question, who will be this caretaker? The president has left that decision to Imran Khan and Shehbaz Sharif, who's the leader of the opposition. He says they should reach a consensus and they should together come up with a name. That's not happening. Imran Khan has picked his choice, Gulzar Ahmad, the former Chief Justice of Pakistan. Imran Khan wants him to be the caretaker prime minister. Shehbaz Sharif does not agree. He's against Gulzar Ahmad's appointment. In fact, he's against any appointment. He does not plan to send any name for the post of caretaker PM. Needless to say, there's no consensus. The PTI says that if Sharif does not name anyone in the next 7 days, Imran Khan's nominee would be made the caretaker prime minister. And to ensure that this happens, Imran Khan has decided to hit the streets and the screens. He appeared on TV again today, appealing to the people of Pakistan to sit on dharna or a protest. Against what? Against the opposition's efforts to undermine his authority.
अवाम को मैं आज सबको आपको कह रहा हूं कि आपको प्रोटेस्ट करना चाहिए। मैंने आज अनाउंस कर रहा हूं कि मैं आज शाम को मैं भी इस प्रोटेस्ट पे शामिल होऊंगा। हम ये रेड जोन के बाहर इस्लामाबाद में आज प्रोटेस्ट करेंगे, पुरअमन प्रोटेस्ट। हमेशा हमारा प्रोटेस्ट पुरअमन होता है, लेकिन इसके खिलाफ करेंगे ये जो गद्दारी हो रही है मुल्क के खिलाफ। गद्दारी का मतलब ये है कि बाहर के एजेंडे के ऊपर हुकूमत को गिराने की कोशिश है और दूसरी तरफ ये जो खरीदे जा रहे हैं पॉलिटिशियंस, उनकी रेट्स लगी हुई हैं, उनको जो खरीदा जा रहा है, ये बिल्कुल इसके खिलाफ मैं आज अपने लोगों के साथ प्रोटेस्ट करूंगा।
Now, amid this political drama, where's the army of Pakistan? Well, they were busy setting the record straight. The chief spoke at the Islamabad Security Dialogue on Saturday. This is General Qamar Javed Bajwa, Pakistan's army chief. He condemned Russia's actions in Ukraine. He called the invasion a huge tragedy which must end immediately. He also pushed for closer ties with the US, calling it vital to Pakistan's interests. It was an elaborate statement, dramatically opposite to Imran Khan's line. Here's a 1-minute excerpt.
Pakistan enjoys a close strategic relationship with China, demonstrated by our commitment towards Pakistan-China Economic Corridor or CPEC. Equally, we share a long history of excellent and strategic relationship with the United States, which remains our largest export market. We seek to broaden and expand our ties with both countries without impacting our relations with the other. Similarly, European Union, United Kingdom, Gulf Southeast Asia, and Japan are also vital for our national development and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is deeply concerned about the conflict in Ukraine. With Ukraine, we enjoy excellent defense and economic relationships since its independence. With Russia, we had cold relations for a long time due to numerous reasons. However, recently there has been some positive development in this regard. Sadly, the Russian invasion against Ukraine is very unfortunate, as thousands of people have been killed, millions made refugees, and half of Ukraine destroyed. This is a huge tragedy which must be stopped immediately.
One cannot overstate the importance of these words. They're the opposite of Imran Khan's policy on Ukraine. He accused America of conspiring against him. The general is reaching out to America. What explains this? Pakistan, you see, is a hybrid regime. A military leadership driving the civilian government. Foreign policy has always been Rawalpindi's domain, not Islamabad's. Imran Khan did not follow the rules. He upset the generals, he rallied against the West, and he couldn't fix the economy. So the army is doing course correction. They're getting him out of office and bridging the divide with the West. You see, Imran Khan keeps talking about India's independent foreign policy. He forgets that Pakistan is not India. It needs donors of all descriptions to survive. As a cricket captain, Imran Khan was also peerless. He was flamboyant, he was innovative, he was always thinking. In fact, he loved playing mind games. I'm going to share with you a story from 1982. Pakistan were about to begin their tour of England. Imran Khan was captain. He showered praise on his spinner, Abdul Qadir. He called him a wizard with the ball. Now, for most captains, that would have been enough. But not Imran Khan. He asked Abdul Qadir to grow a prominent French beard. Why? So that he would actually look like a wizard. Like I said, mind games. Imran Khan, the politician, is no different. He exaggerated claims. And the claims that were not even remotely true. There is no conspiracy by the CIA to oust him, but that's Imran Khan for you. His goal is to create a narrative, not stick to facts, which brings us to his strategy. How does Imran Khan plan to stay in power? By playing three cards. Number one is the foreign conspiracy angle. Number two, to drum up public support to sidestep the army. And number three, use religious messaging. Now, normally, you wouldn't need any strategy in Pakistan. All you need is the army. If the army supports you, you can win any election. Even Imran Khan was chosen by the army. But now the generals have abandoned him. They're not willing to rescue Imran Khan's government, which is why he's thinking out of the box. Strategy number one. The foreign conspiracy angle. He keeps talking about it in every speech, that Western powers are conspiring to oust him, specifically the United States. Now, this strategy is important for two reasons. A, it justifies his decision to dissolve the parliament, in other words, no trust vote. And B, it's a great election stump. Just think about it. The US-backed puppet leaders on one side and the brave and independent Imran Khan on the other.
नेशनल असेंबली के हमारे स्पीकर ने मुस्तरद किया, रिजेक्ट किया एक वो मूव, रिजीम चेंज की जो कोशिश की गई थी पाकिस्तान के 22 करोड़ अवाम में, एक बाहर से प्लान किया हुआ नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन जिसके पीछे एक फॉरेन एजेंडा था, और जो आज स्पीकर ने उसको जो रिजेक्ट किया और ये नो कॉन्फिडेंस को जो रिजेक्ट किया, मैं सारी कौम को आज मुबारक देता हूँ.
Strategy number two is drumming up public support. On this, Imran Khan doesn't have an option. His allies have ditched him. The army has ditched him. So Imran Khan has suddenly remembered democracy. Just look at his recent reactions and actions. Prime Minister's prime-time speeches, in fact, to the country. Town hall-style interactions with the youth. Long interviews to the media. Imran Khan is basically going around the army. The exact opposite of the elections in 2018. That was when the army supported him. He was the establishment's choice. This time, he's creating a new narrative where he, Imran Khan, is taking on the establishment. How will he do that? Through strategy number three, drum up religious fervor. Let me show you a tweet by Imran Khan on the 2nd of April. This is what he said. In Karbala, facing an enemy that far outnumbered them, Imam Hussain, his family and followers laid down their lives to show people the difference between haq and batil. Today we are fighting for truth and patriotism against falsehood and treason. He's talking about the Battle of Karbala. It's a constant feature of Islamic politics. The Caliph Yazid led his large army against Imam Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad. Hussein's army was routed, but his courage became a central Islamic principle. The battle between evil and good. Even now it is celebrated annually, what we call the Day of Ashura. Karbala is a popular strategy in Islamic politics. Ruhollah Khomeini used it during the Iranian Revolution, and that ended in success. But for Imran Khan, there is no such guarantee. For starters, the Supreme Court can still reverse his decision. A 5-judge bench is currently hearing the case. Their verdict will decide what happens next. They can reconvene parliament. They can order snap elections. They can ban Imran Khan from contesting, or they can simply refuse to interfere. So Imran Khan's immediate priority is to defend his move to dissolve parliament to ensure there will be elections. And trust me when I say this, that's the easy part. At the ballot box, everything is stacked against him. No coalition partner, no army to stuff the ballots, and a poor track record to boot. So this is Imran Khan's last throw of the dice, a desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. All the speeches, all the Islamic references, all the conspiracy theories, they may not work at the polling booth because this is politics, not cricket. What Imran Khan calls a googly is actually a juicy full toss. We'll see how that plays out. A lot is happening in South Asia, clearly. It's no different in China, I must tell you. A lot of headlines coming out of China, some that Beijing is scrambling to hide. So allow me to run you through the day's top 3 developments in China. Number 1, China has sent the military to Shanghai. Number 2, there is a new virus in China. And 3, there will soon be a new leader in Hong Kong. We'll start with Shanghai. China has sent the military into the city. What for? To fight the Wuhan virus. Not making this up. Shanghai, as we have been telling you in our reports, is under lockdown. The Wuhan virus has overwhelmed China's financial capital. There are more than 8,500 asymptomatic cases and some 400 plus symptomatic cases. All 26 million residents of Shanghai are now being tested. They're expected to queue up at their housing compound, stand 2 meters apart from one another, stand in a line from the wee hours and wait till China's COVID task force swabs their throats. It's a desperate situation. At least 2,000 personnel from the PLA have marched into the city. What for? To fight the virus? Or to oversee the mayhem? Well, we don't know. 38,000 workers from Jiangsu, Zhejiang and Beijing have also been dispatched. Again, to do what? Perhaps oversee the test and quarantine. But quarantine where? Now that's $1 million question. China had mandated hospital quarantine. But Shanghai's hospitals are already full. Authorities have had to turn gyms into quarantine centers. The city's new expo center has also been turned into an isolation facility. The situation is so desperate, those being sent to quarantine centers are complaining. There are too many people, they say, and too little cleaning. Videos have emerged on Chinese social media. Those quarantined say it is hard to get a meal or medicines in these facilities.
There are no showers here, and we're not allowed to receive any parcels from the outside world, so we cannot order any food or anything from home. There's no official information about any plans, any arrangements. We don't know when we're going to leave, and we also have no idea how many tests we need to leave this place. We also had no clue when are we going to have those tests. So, we don't know anything.
Another Shanghai resident told the media he was taken to the quarantine center where he tested negative, but he was forced to continue sharing a toilet with 2 positive patients. How is this isolation, he asked. Shanghai's residents and healthcare workers are frustrated alike. A leaked call recording has gone viral. A healthcare official can be heard complaining to her father about the quarantine and testing rules. She says the virus has become political. You know, the military cannot fight these situations. Only proper policies can. But force is all that China knows. The woman in the leaked audio is now being investigated. Videos of workers complaining or of the chaos at quarantine centers are all being scrubbed off social media. I wonder how the news of the new virus has managed to leak out. The new virus has been detected in Suzhou near Shanghai, And we will get you the details in a couple of minutes. For the moment, I'm going to take you to the final story from China. You might recognize this woman. She's Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong. She made a big announcement this morning. Lam says she will not be seeking re-election.
I won't run in the 6th executive election. In other words, I will complete my 5-year term as the chief executive on June 30th this year and end my more than 40-year government service career.
Pretty clear message there. Carrie Lam is serving just her first term in office, not seeking a second seems bizarre. So what explains her decision? Family considerations, she says. Carrie Lam assumed office in 2017. She promised to unite the city, but under her, Hong Kong's division only deepened further. Millions took to the streets in 2019. They protested against the government. They demanded democracy. There was violence. It made international headlines and painted Carrie Lam in a bad light. Lam was just 2 years into office. The worst was yet to come. In 2020, Beijing implemented the national security law. Carrie Lam became the face of Chinese atrocities on Hong Kongers. The West sanctioned her. Then came the Wuhan virus, and the rest, as they say, is history. One thing's for sure, Carrie Lam did not make a great leader. But who's at fault? And who is to blame for that? The question is up for debate. She once admitted to a business forum that in Hong Kong, political room for maneuvering is very, very, very limited. That's what she said, exact words, very, very, very limited. She said that a Hong Kong executive has to serve two masters, the people of Hong Kong and the bosses in Beijing. Experts say Carrie Lam's failure, is of her own making, at least in the case of the Wuhan virus. Hong Kong remained largely unaffected during the first and the Delta wave. It had 2 years to prepare pandemic policies. It had some of the world's toughest restrictions. Yet somehow Hong Kong managed to get swept away by Omicron. So 5 years into office, has Carrie Lam let Beijing down? Is that why she's being asked to step down? Elections in Hong Kong are due on the 8th of May. This man is reportedly China's candidate of choice. His name is John Lee. Lee has been a policeman all his life. Currently, he's serving as the Secretary for Security. Basically, he is second in command in Hong Kong. He played a key role in spearheading the Hong Kong extradition law, the one that triggered the mass protests in 2019. As China looks to closely police Hong Kong, John Lee is best equipped to be Beijing's new puppet in the city. We'll be tracking those elections for you closely here on the show. But there's more bad news from China this evening. A new subtype of the Wuhan virus has been detected near Shanghai. It is something that the world hasn't seen before. China's massive outbreak is already making the world nervous. It could fuel another major outbreak in other parts of the world. China's own response is also weakening the global fight. Our next report tells you why.
It is not over yet. The Wuhan virus has morphed again. A new subtype has been detected in China. It has been named BA.1.1. It doesn't match with any existing variants. This virus was found in Suzhou, a city next to Shanghai. The patient is showing mild symptoms, but nothing can be taken for granted. China is witnessing its biggest Wuhan virus outbreak yet, and Beijing's response is putting lives at risk. The relentless spread has created the perfect conditions for a virus to morph and spread. Shanghai is one of the biggest hotspots in China right now. 26 million people are under a lockdown. Chinese President Xi Jinping has made a vow. He has promised to minimize disruption to the economy. Here is the result of that. Workers are living inside factories in Shanghai now. At this milk factory, almost 1,000 workers now sleep in every day. They sleep on sofas. Such measures might keep the milk factory running, but they also create an environment for the virus to spread. It's not just the factories. Even traders are staying in offices these days. At one of the trading floors, traders have been given airbeds, instant noodles, and emergency kits to survive. The message is clear. Whatever happens, Chinese companies will keep their operations going. Some of the policies are downright inhumane, like this one. Shanghai health authorities are separating children from their families. If the parents catch the virus, the children are taken away. This picture recently went viral. It is from the Shanghai Clinic Center for Public Health. Dozens of children are being kept here. The wards and hallways are crowded. 2 to 3 kids share the same bed, and their parents are nowhere to be seen. Chinese treatment protocols have come under fire too. Instead of tried and tested drugs, Chinese authorities are pushing unproven cures, like honeysuckle, rhubarb root, and sweet wormwood herb. Beijing is sending these cures to their allies too. Specialists in Chinese medicine have been dispatched to Cambodia and Pakistan. High volume of cases, office quarantines, and the use of unproven cures. These factors are creating an environment for the virus to thrive. They are a threat not just for Chinese citizens, but for the rest of the world too. That could be forced to fight another virus from China.
Military retreats can be a messy affair. When occupiers leave, they reveal a lot of things: how they treated defeated soldiers, how they behaved as conquerors. Right now, something similar is happening in Ukraine, in the city of Bucha. It was captured by Russia on March 12th. 18 days later, it was retaken. As the Russians pulled back, images poured in from this city, images like these. Now, I have to warn you, these are extremely graphic pictures. What you're looking at are dead bodies, all of them piled on the streets, some with bags over their head, others with their hands tied. Authorities say 400 such bodies were found in Bucha. What happened to these people? Ukraine says they were massacred by Russia, that retreating Russian soldiers shot civilians point blank.
Bucha massacre is the most outrageous atrocity of the 21st century. And by saying we all refer to Bucha, but we should not forget about other towns and villages in the Kiev region, which also became the crime scene for Russian army. Without an exaggeration, by what we've seen in Bucha and vicinity, we can conclude that Russia is worse than ISIS in the scale and the ruthlessness of the crimes committed.
If true, this would be war crime, and a brutal one at that. There are reports of mass executions, torture, rape. Ukraine is already calling it a genocide. They want the International Criminal Court to prosecute Russia. But Moscow denies these allegations. According to them, these pictures are staged.
The other day, another fake news attack was undertaken in the town of Bucha in the Kiev region after the Russian military had left, according to the plans and agreements. Several days later, a fake video was staged that is now being spread through all media channels and social media by the Ukrainian representatives and their Western patrons.
So far, we do not have any forensic evidence, nothing to conclusively call it a genocide. Having said that, it is hard to argue with these pictures. This one shows a mass grave outside Kiev. It was shallow enough to be noticed. A village elder and one family were buried in this grave. Then you have these satellite images. The building at the center is a church. Do you see the trenches around it? They're almost 45 feet long. Again, these are consistent with mass graves. Plus, you have testimonies from people, residents who survived the Russian occupation. Their stories corroborate what Ukraine is saying.
5 days passed, 10, then 13. I was looking for my husband. Then I went to a basement. Before that, I had written a report to the Red Cross, saying I had been looking and looking for him. They took my data. When I came to the basement, Tanya said to look there, as two bodies were lying inside. She said my husband could be there. When I came down, I recognized him by his shoes, his trousers. His face was mutilated. His body was cold. They turned him over a little.
And that's just one account. Dozens of similar testimonies are emerging from Bucha. All of them have the same story to tell, a barbaric retreat by the Russian army. All these accounts will be crucial in the days ahead. They will play an important role in any investigation. But will Russia agree to a probe? Well, so far their strategy has been to deflect blame. In fact, Moscow is seeking a special United Nations Security Council meeting today. They want just one item on the agenda, the killings in Bucha. Russia is blaming Ukrainian soldiers for these war crimes, basically flipping the narrative. You see, words like genocide and massacre cannot be thrown around. They must be studied. They must be investigated. They must be proved. Does that mean Russia gets a free pass? Of course not. Russia has already bombed civilian buildings in Ukraine. In other words, they've already committed war crimes. And these killings in Bucha would be a continuation of that trend. Either way, one thing is clear. Untold atrocities were committed in Bucha, most likely by the Russian army, and there will be consequences for that. Earlier today, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Bucha. He said Russia's actions make negotiations tougher.
The longer Russia delays the talks, the worse it is for them and for this situation, for this war. Because every day when our troops walk in and deoccupy certain territories, you see what's going on. It's very difficult to conduct negotiations when you see what they did there.
Ukraine's allies are saying the same things. Germany, Britain, the United States, all of them have condemned the alleged massacre.
This will not remain without consequences. Russia will have to pay a price for this. And as far as we're concerned, we will do our utmost to make sure we bring those responsible to justice.
These bloody massacres committed by Russian soldiers deserve to be called by their name. This is a genocide and must be judged as such. This crime scene must be judged as a place of genocide.
As usual, Europe has a lot to say, but when it comes to doing something, they shy away. Take sanctions, for example. The existing ones clearly have not worked because Russia is not even considering a withdrawal. So what Europe needs is more sanctions, except the member states cannot agree. The Baltic countries, for example, are halting Russian gas imports. Western Europe says not yet. These differences are playing out in public. On Monday, Poland openly called out Germany for hampering Europe's response.
This can be seen at the European Council. Everyone who reads the transcripts, also the journalists from TVN, will clearly see that Germany is the main brake on very strong sanctions.
Russia will keep exploiting these differences, which is why Ukraine needs to act by itself, possibly strike a peace deal with Russia. Last week, there were some favorable signs. Both Ukraine and Russia exchanged prisoners. But the pictures from Bucha will change that. War crimes and talks cannot go hand in hand. For the moment, we turn to France, where the presidential race is tightening. Until now, Emmanuel Macron, the incumbent, was in the clear lead. He was expected to win, but the tide appears to be turning now. Opinion polls say his challenges are gaining ground. The French president has himself admitted that this election could end up in a Brexit-style upset. Our next report has all the details.
France is going to polls in 6 days. The first round will be held on Sunday. So far, Emmanuel Macron has had a significant lead. The surveys, the media, the electorate, they've all predicted an easy victory for the president. But as election day nears, the race is tightening. His challenges are gaining ground. According to the latest Ipsos survey, Macron is projected to win 26% of votes in the first round, just 5% more than his main challenger, Marine Le Pen. She's expected to win 21% of the vote. In the second round, Macron is projected to win 53% of the vote, Le Pen 47%. So the tide appears to be turning, and Macron is aware. Speaking at his own campaign rally in Mons, he warned his supporters of a Brexit-style election upset.
The danger of extremism has reached new heights today because in recent months and years, hatred, alternative truths have been normalized in the public discourse. We have gotten used to seeing TV shows with anti-Semitic and racist authors.
Sur certains plateaux de télévision, des auteurs antisémites, d'autres racistes. 17 ans. Regardez!
Look at what happened with Brexit and so many other elections. What looked improbable actually happened. So I'm telling you very strongly tonight, nothing is impossible.
Beaucoup de force ce soir. Rien n'est impossible.
Macron's challengers have sensed his fears, especially Marine Le Pen. This is her third bid for presidency. She lost the race both in 2012 and 2017. This time, she's confident about turning the tables.
I think that everyone can see that considering my position in the polls and the margin of error for the second round. Yes, I can win this presidential election, and I will, with the help of French people. Because the people have understood, if the people vote, the people win. So, they will vote.
Le Pen is not the only threat to Macron's rule. The other challenger is this man, Eric Zemmour, a TV star turned politician. He too is on a spectacular rise. His TV appearances are causing a frenzy. His statements are grabbing headlines. The latest opinion polls put him in the third spot. Zemmour says they've got it wrong. He says he's going to spring a surprise on election day.
They have said everything and they have gotten everything wrong. You're in the process of making this rally in Trocadero the largest demonstration of strength in this campaign. Yes, this is a signal. It's a poll, full-sized, a sneak peek of the surprise to come.
So who is it going to be? Well, this race is too close to call. The French electorate is highly polarized. People who voted out of duty or are loyal to one party or faithful to one candidate no longer exist. Reports say 40% of the voters are still undecided. That's 4 in every 10 voters. This indeed leaves a lot of room for an electoral surprise. Bureau Report. WION. World is one.
It's Monday and I won't be surprised if some of you are already looking forward to a break or counting down to the weekend. The 2 days away from work. You know, at times 2 days are not enough. There's a lot of pending work at home, a long bucket list to check off, a new hobby to master or an ailing family member to make lasting memories with. Sometimes even a month or 2 are not enough. Well, that's when many professionals take what's called a career break. It's basically time off from work. You resign from your current role and not associate yourself with any role for months in a row. It's like an adult gap year. Time that people use to focus on caregiving, attend to a newborn, heal from a personal loss, travel, test a new career, volunteer, or just spend time at home. Do whatever you like. Why did we decide to talk about career breaks today? Because it is slowly being normalized. Professionals around the world are embracing their career breaks. You see, for the longest time, career breaks were frowned upon. Employees would try to hide it from their CVs. The pandemic has changed all of this. It has forced corporates to adapt, to warm up to the idea of career breaks. LinkedIn, for example, is allowing users to list career breaks on their profiles, flaunt it on their CVs, highlight the skills that they learned during the time off, talk about their experience. Normalizing career breaks is the latest career trend. I recently read a post I want to tell you about. A recruiter was talking about interviewing a young professional. Now let's call this young professional Adam. Now Adam had a gap year. The recruiter said in most cases that CVs never make it to the final cut, but he decided to make an exception. He asked Adam why he had taken a break from work. Adam said his father was dying, so he wanted to take care of his parent, to be there for him in his final days, to give him a fitting farewell. The recruiter said he hired Adam because of his emotional quotient, or EQ. He respected Adam's brave decision to prioritize a parent over work. Career breaks are never easy. The very thought of not being employed, of not having your salary credited to your account every month, not having a routine can be very scary. But people often need to take such tough calls. A survey found nearly 2/3 of employees have taken a break at some point. 64% of women have experienced a career break of some sort. The top reasons include parental and medical leaves. And yet, somehow, career breaks were never considered usual, unhealthy for growth. It would be confused with quitting or giving up. The pandemic has changed this. People left their jobs to take care of the elderly or children. People left jobs to move closer to their families. Some decided to take a break to spend quality time at home. Some wanted to explore new careers, monetize their hobbies. And as employees reworked their priorities, employers adapted to the change. Today, some of the biggest companies in the world are welcoming people returning to the workforce. I'm talking about the likes of Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, Microsoft and General Motors. In the old world, re-entering the job market or even managing to secure a job call would be a Herculean task. There would always be a sense of bias against people returning from a career break. Worse if you were on a second career break. You would have to answer multiple questions, starting with why, and then make a case against why you should not be punished monetarily for taking a break. Questions like, why should you be paid at par with someone who has been quote-unquote consistent? How do we know you won't decide to take another break? Questions like these were common. Some of you may have faced them already. The good news is the times are changing. Employees are redrawing their CVs, replacing a career ladder with career waves. Today, millennials make up 35% of the global workforce. At least 84% of them foresee career breaks along the way. Long story short, normalizing career breaks is the new normal. Has the trend come to India? Are career breaks still a taboo where you work? Write to us. We love to hear from you. And it's only Monday, so hang in there. We're wrapping up the show, leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.
Ese burro que quilate, sé que pone los quilates. O tú ganas o yo gano, no lo dejamos en empate. En mi casa se remate. I move my body just like this. I don't know why, but I feel like
ورحمة منك. وفي علينا برحمتك فزوجنا